This video will show you how to do high power staging. That means staging with electronics, and how to set it up in RockSim. Right here I got a two-stage rocket as an Aerobee high, and we're going to use electronics to do the staging here, because you can see there's no way to do direct staging here in this kind of model. What we have here is two 29mm motors, one in the bottom, one in the top. And let's go ahead and start setting things up and try to explain some things. So we're going to go prepare for launch. This is our booster stage right down here, which is this one over here. Into this engine mount, let's put in an Aerotech G64 motor, and then the upper stage, let's put in a G79, just so that we can tell them apart. Okay, and for the delay, ejection charge delay on the top stage, we'll just set it at 10. We'll just use engine ejection for the sustainer parachute. Now on the booster, it also has a parachute in it. It has a small 18-inch parachute, and we're going to deploy that one 8 seconds after the booster separates. So we want it coming down so it doesn't get burned by the motor of the top stage. We want them to be completely separated apart. And then on the sustainer stage, we have a 24-inch nylon parachute, and we're going to deploy that one at maximum engine ejection, which we saw over here is 10 seconds. Okay, so now how do we stage? The staging is always controlled by the ejection charge of the booster motor. Now you're saying, this G64, it doesn't have any 0-second delays. So how are we going to set that? Well, the easy answer is we're going to type in a number, and the number controls how many seconds after engine burnout when the separation of the two stages is going to happen. We can put in a 0, so I'm going to type in a 0, and then on your keyboard hit the enter key, not the return key, but the enter key on your keyboard, so it accepts the number. So we have a 0-second delay on the booster motor. So it should be just like if you were staging a D12 0 to a D12 5. The 0 controls when ejection charge, when the separation occurs. And we'll go ahead and click flight profile. Let's take a look at this. So it runs the simulation, and here is our rocket. We got our booster stage down here, sustainer stage up there. If we go ahead and launch it, the rocket's taking off, and immediately the rocket stages and the booster is falling away. And then 8 seconds later, the parachute comes out, and then 10 seconds after this one burns out, its parachute comes out. And you can see we have separation and everything worked fine. Let's say we wanted things to be a little bit more complicated. Let's say we want the upper stage and the booster to coast together as one unit for 3 seconds. So how do we do that? This is easy, so we're just going to go here and change the ejection delay to 3 seconds. And we click launch. And we launch down here again. The rocket's taking off. Okay, the smoke is gone, so now it is coasting for 3 seconds, and then this top stage fires. And you can see that occurred. Let's go take a look at that on the graphs, just to make sure everything is what we planned. So we're going to go plot graph. We're going to plot out the thrust curve so we can see when the engine is firing. And we also want to plot out the mass curve, and I'll show you why here in just a second. So we go ahead and plot that out, and this is what it looks like. And we're going to zoom in down here. We're just going to select this area to look at. So here is the thrust curve in green. See, this is the first motor, and as the first motor is burning, this blue line up here is the mass curve. So as the motor is burning off propellant, the mass is decreasing, and then we have motor burnout right here, And at this point, the mass stays the same, and it's for 3 seconds, 3 whole seconds. It's coasting together. The mass stays the same. Then all of a sudden, the mass drops, and that's when the ejection charge of that booster motor kicked it off. So now we have just the sustainer alone. Its motor fires, and then it loses mass while the motor is thrusting, and then you have a final mass curve, and it stays the same because nothing else is happening. So that's why I wanted to show you that mass curve, so you can kind of see on the plots what's happening. Now let's say after the engine, after the stages have separated, we want the top stage to coast for a little bit before it fires its motor. So we're kind of doing an air start here. So how do we set that up? Well, that's simple again. We go to prepare for launch. This time the only thing we're going to change is the ignition delay. The ignition delay gives us that pause. It's kind of like pushing the button on your launch controller. And you push the button and nothing happens for a certain amount of time, and then after that, then all of a sudden the motor ignites. So let's do a 2-second delay here. And again, I'm hitting the enter key on the keyboard. So now it has the ignition delay. And let's go ahead and do the flight profile. So the only thing that's changed is now we're going to do a 2-second coast before that top stage ignites. So the rocket takes off, the thrust stops, so there's no more smoke. They coast together for 3 seconds, and now they coasted the upper stage coasted by itself for 2 seconds. You didn't see it because the bottom stage was actually flying with it. It was coasting upwards too because its parachute didn't come out right away. Okay, let's go look at the graph and see what occurred there. Same thing again, time, thrust, altitude, and mass. Plot that out. Let's zoom in over here. Okay, so again, we're going to look at that mass curve. So the motor burned out right here, the first stage motor, and it coasted together, and then the bottom stage dropped off. So we lost a lot of mass when that bottom stage fell away. But now it's stable here. Again, nothing's happening for another 2 seconds, just like we had planned. And then all of a sudden the top stage kicks in, and it's burning off its mast. And when all of it's burned out, you're right here, and then you're at a constant mass again. So everything has worked as we had set it up. So again, what controls everything is the ejection delay and the ignition delay. You change those two things and you can control when things happen. And then parachutes are always controlled up here under flight events. So that's how you do advanced staging in RockSim.